Observe two scenarios in which a teacher uses different approaches to teach a class.
Students, today we are going to learn about concrete nouns. The nouns that we can describe by using our 5 senses are known as concrete nouns. Please open your copies and write down the examples of concrete nouns that I'll write on the board. Students, look around you. Quickly write down 3 things that you can see. Now, write down what you had for breakfast. Shh! Do you hear that? Tell the person next to you. Now, tell me what your favorite smell is. Great! What are all of you touching? These are all examples of nouns that we can describe by using our 5 senses. They're known as concrete nouns.
We just saw a teacher teaching the same concept of concrete nouns in 2 completely different ways. Which one is better? Why? The second approach is better because students were thinking, participating, and coming up with their own examples. In the first approach, the students were only passively receiving information. In the second approach, the teacher effectively encouraged active learning. Active learning is a learning activity in which the students participate in the learning process and think about how and why they are learning. To encourage active learning, a teacher will guide the students towards the discovery of knowledge. She won't simply give students the information she thinks they need to know. Is active learning effective? Yes! One research paper in 2014 looked at 225 different studies and found that students who learned through traditional lectures were 1.5 times more likely to fail than students in classes with active learning. You might worry that active learning requires a lot of resources, or that your students must already be critical thinkers to be actively engaged in learning. That's not true. With clever planning, active learning can be a part of every classroom. Let's look at a few techniques.
Students, yesterday we learned how plastics are made. Today, we learn about the plastics around us. First, let's use a think, pair, share strategy to come up with advantages and disadvantages of plastics. In each pair, the person on the right should think of advantages. The person on the left should think of disadvantages. Then, talk to your pair partner and make a combined list. At the end, I will randomly ask some pairs to share one advantage or one disadvantage. Are the instructions clear? Let's start. You have 4 minutes. Great! Is there any pair whose advantage or disadvantage I haven't put on the board yet?
Plastic bags can block water drains on streets.
That's a nice point. Let me also add a disadvantage that I thought of. Now, how can we reduce the harm caused by these disadvantages?
This was just one of the many ways that a think, pair, share strategy can be used in a classroom. It's important to give clear instructions and set the expectations for student roles. Did you notice how the teacher listed her own disadvantage at the end? She gave students plenty of opportunities to cover all the points and only stepped in at the end. Many students also feel stressed when they are directly asked a question. By allowing the students to talk to each other, the teacher reduced the stress. Let's look at another active learning approach that can introduce or reinforce key concepts, known as quickly write.
Students, let me tell you about the different methods we can use to communicate with each other. You are now familiar with various means of communication. Take 3 minutes to quickly write about the method of communication that is very important to you. Also state why it's important. Now, exchange your copy with your partner. Raise your hands if you want your partner to read your note.
The teacher used the quickly write active learning strategy at the end. However, she didn't use any active learning strategy in the beginning. Pause this video and think about how active learning could have been a part of the beginning of her lesson. Let me tell you one method. The teacher could have said, "Do you have a friend or relative in a different city?" Write down the different ways in which you talk to them. By opening the lesson with a relatable question, the teacher can encourage active learning right from the start. A well-structured question at the start of a lesson can also make video watching an active learning activity. Suppose a teacher has to show this mathematics video in class. Now, watching a video can very easily become a passive activity. However, with the right question at the start, it can lead to active learning. For example, the teacher can pause the video at the title slide and ask, "What do you already know about sets? What do you hope to learn about them by the end of the video?" Now, when the students start watching the video, they'll be actively searching for relevant knowledge and will remain engaged throughout. Can you think of a section of this video you're watching that encouraged active learning? Feel free to rewind if you can't remember. So, in this video, we learned about 3 active learning strategies. Think, pair, share, quickly write, opening with a question. Remember, each of these strategies can be used with minimal resources and just a bit of planning. Start off by using just one strategy in your classroom, till it becomes a part of your teaching routine. There are plenty of other ways to engage your students to learn actively. Can you think of any other such ways? Eventually, all your students will be participating fully in the learning process.